Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. And what I want to do in this video is create another front end. So this would be front end number 7. And this one we're still working with web components, but I'm going to use a base class that I created. So this is my libraries file. So if you ever want to find the different libraries I've created, you just go to this website right here, alexmercedcoder.com/jslib. And you can find all my JavaScript libraries in one place. Most of them have to do with web components. I have one more I need to add here, but I'll do that later. But basically, we're going to use my simplest web component library, which is BasicElement, which just creates one sort of base class you can use for creating web components. Okay. So what we're going to do is, let's do. Let me do a hard refresh because I swear I just updated this last night. Yeah, there we go. Good. So we go to the GitHub. All you really need is a script tag. So here's a link so you can do the script tag. So I'm going to start a new project over here. So close this. Oh, actually this one I can, well, I'll keep this one open for later. Cool. So let's go to lots of apps and let's create a new file. No, not new file. New folder. And this is going to be basic element front end. And then since web components, I don't need to do anything fancy, so I can just create a new index.html and an app.js. Okay, and then in my index.html, just put a normal HTML boilerplate. Put a script tag for my app.js, add a defer tag to it, then do another script. Oh. And then there's where we'll put our link. Let's go back over here, copy this link here, copy link to address, and I will post that right in here. Again, add the word defer, so that way that library is available. And we're just going to, again, create one component, app to do. Cool. Save. So now we just have to create that component. First, let's just do the basics. So let me just close all this stuff. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, it should just be basically class app to do extends basic element. Okay. And let's see here. In this case, what we want to do is create a constructor. Let's do the usual super. And let's consult the docs on. Basically, I designed BasicElement to give you a class that kind of works a little bit more like React with state and stuff. So let's go over here in the docs. You can see here the basic code of how you start one. So again, here you're passing the initial state into the constructor. And aside from that, you have access to props, and you just generate your render function, which takes 2 parameters, state and props. Okay, and then anytime you use, you want to update the state, you just use a set state function, and it'll update the state and re-render the component. And that's just like a React component. Okay, so we'll pass our initial state, which will be usually, as usual, our state includes the to-dos, which will be an empty array, and the input field for our input button later on. Okay, so that's done there. Then we just need to make a render component. A render, okay, state props, just make sure it's in that order. State then props. Good. Cool. Okay, and then we're just going to return a template string, and just like we've done in the previous ones, we'll do an h1 for to-do app. Okay, and then here's where we're going to iterate the to-dos. So while I'm here, we will do state dot to-dos, because essentially this object here is going to get passed into this render function every time. And then separately, it'll grab any props, just as strings, and pass in a props object. Okay, so state props, state dot to-dos dot map, and again we want to save this in a variable, so const to-do string equals state dot to-dos dot map to do, and that's going to be h2s, h2. Oh wait, this is not JSX, so I need backticks. H2 to do slash h2 to do h2 to do, and then that would create the array of to-dos, and then I want to join them with an empty string, so that way I can have it all as one big string with a bunch of h2s, which I'm going to interpolate right over here. Cool. Okay, so that should iterate the to-dos onto the screen. Okay, although if I were to run this right now, so let's run this, open with live server. Right now you don't see anything yet because, let me think about this. Render state props, return, h1 to do, app h1. We should be able to see the h1 already. Oh, wait, do I have, I never registered this with the thing. Okay, so let's see here. Custom elements dot define app to do. App to do. There, that way it registers it with the browser. Okay, and there you see to do app. But right now, no to dos because I haven't actually done the API call yet. And just like previously, again, if you want to do like a lifecycle, it's connected callback for web components. That's what happens when the component gets connected. So then here I would just do my normal fetch http / local host 4000. Then we do our .thens, response.json, .then JSON. And when that happens, we want to set the state. So we're going to do this dot set state, and then we will take the existing state and spread it in there. This dot state, and we will take make a property called to-dos that equals JSON. Okay. Oh, actually, now that I think about it, I think I have changed this where I don't need to do this anymore. So it should be able to just work like that without erasing input. Because basically, under the hood, what's going on is that it's merging the two objects, using the spread operator to spread the first one automatically, and then merging it with the second one. Okay, so we'll find out if that's the case in a moment, but let's see here. So now, and it works. See, it's grabbing all the to-dos now. Yay, and updating the thing. And again, I didn't have to do any logic other than just create my render function and then just use set state whenever the state changes. Nice. Okay, and then the last piece is just we need to have our buttons and stuff. So first we create our input. Okay, input type equals text, and then we have a button which will say submit. Good. Okay. Then we just need to make a function for when that button is clicked. Okay, so handle submit takes no arguments, and yeah, handle submit. And what it's going to do, first we'll grab the input, const input equals this dot shadow root dot query selector. Okay, and then we're gonna grab the input. Okay, and then once we have the input, then we will do our API call. Or actually, yeah, that's fine. Okay. Or I can just do this. Just input dot value. We'll grab the value just so that way just a little bit more succinct. Then we'll do the fetch call. Fetch http / localhost 4000. Then we have to pass in an object that says our method's going to be a post because we're posting. And then I got to get my header so that way it recognizes that it's JSON data. So content type application / JSON. And last we need the body. JSON.string if I an object with a property called to do, and that value is just going to be the value. Good. And then after that we would do our .thens. .then response return response.json. Then we'll chain off of that .then because every .then returns a promise. Response JSON, and once again we are going to this dot set state object to do's will be JSON, and then we're going to empty out the form. So input dot value. Oh, wait, no, we just leave it like that. Okay. And then input dot value can go back to being nothing. Clear out the form. Okay, cool. So that function should handle that. Now we just need to make sure that this button actually has an event listener. So basically, because I have to return the template string. So let me think about this. So then I should probably do this in the constructor, because technically the initial render function will happen in the super. So then I can attach the event listener after the fact, and that should work. This dot shadow root. This dot shadow root. Dot query selector. Button. Dot add event listener. Click. And then we're going to add an arrow function that uses the this dot handle submit. Okay, and again, I'm using the arrow function to avoid any issues with the this keyword. Okay, let's give that a shot. There's the button. So let's get dinner. Okay, let's do Control Shift I. That did not. See if let's make sure that the function is actually being hit. I don't think it is. Console.log. Hello. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to console log this. Cut. And use this to make sure that I'm grabbing the right values while I'm at it. Console.log. Input value. Get dinner. Yeah, it's not running the function. See here, elements, event listeners. So let's think here. Because the way this works is I hit that setState function, it runs this render function, which renders the template. Nothing happens after the render. So when can I add that event listener? Because I got to return the string. I mean, there's a cheap way around it, but I don't want to do that. So let me just think about this button. And again, this dot shadow root dot query selector button, add event listener, this dot handle submit. Query selector, this dot shadow root. Let me go look in the docs, see if there's any other features that I'm forgetting. Basic element, here we go. Wonder if I could do this. Cut. If I had this to the connected callback, should that work? So essentially it'll do the fetch, and then it'll wire up my button. Okay, so here's what I'm going to try. I'm going to try to take this, assigning to the event listener, for at least for this particular example, I'm going to stick it in here. So even though this is before the template string gets rendered, technically this will get re-rendered Well, I can think of one downfall for this, but let's give it a shot. Cannot read property at event listener of null. Makes sense. Cut. So that's the case. That means it is accessing it over here in the constructor, or else it would give me the same error. This is something else I'm doing wrong. So let's see here. This dot share shadow root dot query selector. So let's do this. Const button. Let's just see if we're even grabbing the button in the first place. I will comment out this part of the code. And then what I'm going to want to do is console.log button. Or console.log the variable button. Just make sure that I'm grabbing the button that I think I'm grabbing. I am. Okay. So that does work. So then, that must just mean my use of add event listener is wrong. So let's take a quick look. Dot add event listener. When an event of the specified function. Here's the event listener. Yeah, it looks like the way I've been using it, so let's see here. Let's do button dot add event listener. It's a on click event, and then it should just run this function. This dot handle submit. Yeah, so that should be good. Let's try putting something and see if this function is running at all. So the next thing I'll test out is I'll just put a console log here in the arrow function. Hello. Yeah, so that's not passing at all. So again, let's take a look at event listener syntax. Wait, am I spelling listener wrong? Let's take a look. Event Listen, or yeah, I got it spelled right. Listen, her. Let's try if I just do this. Handle submit. This shouldn't work, but let's give it a shot. Should end up with a different problem. It still doesn't want to connect it. So we know we're grabbing the right button because it's being console logged right here. So I'm just trying to think through the steps by which it would run. But the constructor only renders once, so when it updates the state, it's going to render a new button. So that's why the click handler is not clicking. Because the initial button does, but there's technically a new button after that state changes. So we need to re-add the event listener. So, we need a function that runs right after the set state runs. So I could do this, but it still doesn't run every time set state runs. But I can't put anything after the return. This does provide a conundrum. This I'm probably gonna have to add a thing in there. I'll have to update this library for this purpose. And there's a way to do it. Let's see. I just have to do it this way. Didn't want to do it this way, but on click equals not this. I have to do this the long way around. Document dot query selector, and then it's going to be app to do. So we're grabbing that element, and then we have to grab the shadow root and use a query selector from there to grab. Oh no, we don't even have to go that far. It would just be shadow salute dot handle submit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in an arrow function. That then runs the function. And that should do it. Just get rid of this other button code. Not my favorite way to do it, but it should do it, because now it'll render that button with that event every time. Set state, save. Hello, submit. Still. Oh wait, there we go, set updated. Submit. So now we do have the click. We do have the click button. Let's see here, handler. Function location. Yeah, so that is not the correct path of that function. Or I just have to create a separate function. Do. Handle click. And well, this function does, or I can just do this in the constructor. I will make this dot click equal this dot handle click. I think that should bind it. I guess let's try that. This dot click equals this dot handle click. Okay. So it's an arrow function, so that should kind of deal with that. Handle click. Let's see here, document that query, selector, app to do. So it grabs the element. And we'll do that. Nope. That should definitely not work if I do this, but we'll try it anyways. This dot click. Okay, so the easy answer would be this: to take the button out. Okay, and then hit save. And then put the button here. Okay. And then with that, but this kind of violates encapsulation, but whatever, I will adjust the library and add sort of a function you can pass in that occurs after the fact. Okay, so custom events dot define app to do. So let's see here. I want to create a function, or here's what we'll do. Document dot. Everything was so smooth until that point. Document dot VS Code. Let me do my thing. Document dot document dot query selector. We select the button. Then we're going to give it a click listener. And that click listener, what it will do is that when it is clicked, it will invoke document dot query selector app to do, and then invoke that click function. Okay, save. Let's see if that works. Get dinner. This.handle click is not a function. Okay, so let me do it this way. Handle click directly. I think I'm running into this issue. Save. Get dinner. It's not a function, but it is. Oh, handle submit. Blah. Get dinner. And it works. Yay! Okay, so you can see that probably putting everything in one component doesn't purely work. Like, you can't work completely inside the web component right now the way I have it. What I will do is I want to add another parameter, like a connector function that you can also pass in, that'll run after the template's rendered. So that way, if you want to do any connecting, basically any additional work post render, you'll be able to do so, whether it's adding event listeners and doing any other kind of stuff you might want to do. Okay, cool. But yeah, that's the basic element. I will make those changes to that library and probably a few of the others, so that way you have that option. But my name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.